Good evening, and welcome back. Tonight we're heading deep into the frozen wilderness of Montana. A place where silence is never empty. Hidden in the snow lies a forgotten village. A cabin that glows with a red light. And voices that call from beneath the ground. This is not folklore. These are true accounts. The kind of story you don't forget once you've heard it. So sit back, but don't get too comfortable. Because once you hear the voices, they never stop calling. Tonight, we're leaving the safety of familiar roads and heading into a forgotten Montana valley where an abandoned village still hides what drove its people away. These are not campfire tales or second-hand rumors. What you're about to hear comes from journals, forgotten radio logs, and the accounts of those who swore they would never return. In a land where the cold preserves everything, even secrets, some voices never stop calling, no matter how many years pass. I used to think I had seen everything Montana could throw at a man. I had worked as a field guide for years, taking researchers, photographers, even thrill-seekers into the back country. I had seen grizzlies at 10 feet, storms that rolled in so fast you couldn't tell east from west, and nights so cold the ice inside your tent sounded like breaking glass. But there was something about this particular story that still unsettles me, even now. Maybe it's because it began so normal, so routine, the way most tragedies do. You don't feel the danger creeping in until it's already too late. Claire didn't move at first. The pen hovered above her notebook, her breath fogging in the narrow gap of cold air spilling from the cabin. I could see she wanted to ask a dozen questions, but the man's words had thrown her off balance. It was the way he said them, like a confession, not a warning. I stepped closer, putting myself between her and the door. "We don't mean trouble," I said. "We're just passing through. If you'd rather us leave, we will." The man's eye narrowed. For a moment I thought he would slam the door shut. Instead, he muttered, "You can leave. But it won't matter. It's already with you." Then the door closed, not with a bang, but slowly, as if the weight of the world was pushing it back into place. The sound of the latch sliding into the wood was soft, final. Claire finally exhaled, her hand trembling. "What did he mean? With us? What's with us?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had no idea. The whole thing felt wrong, from the smoke with no firewood trail to the lifeless stillness in his voice. I put a hand on her shoulder and guided her away. "We'll camp by the edge of the village. Safer there." She didn't argue, but I noticed her writing quickly as we walked. Even fear couldn't stop her from recording every detail. That was Claire. We set up our tent near the broken steeple of the church. The air was so still I could hear the fabric of the tent snap every time she shifted inside. Darkness settled quick in that valley, the kind that presses down until you forget there was ever light. We cooked a little food on the small stove and ate in silence. It was around midnight when I first noticed the sound. Faint at first, like the groan of wood shifting in the cold. Then it came again, longer this time. A low hum, not carried on the wind, but rising from the ground itself. I pressed my palm to the frozen earth. I could feel it there, a vibration, steady and unnatural. Claire sat up. "Do you hear that?" I nodded, pulling on my boots. "Stay here. I'll check." Of course she didn't stay. By the time I stepped out of the tent, she was right behind me, holding her notebook against her chest like it might protect her. The village lay silent, the cabins hunched under the snow like sleeping animals. But that hum, it was stronger now, coming from beneath us, pulsing like a heartbeat through the ground. We followed it without speaking. Our breaths smoked in the air, catching in the thin moonlight. The sound grew clearer near the church, a broken skeleton of a building leaning into the night. Its windows were gone, its door half torn away, but the hum seemed to flow from it, deep and insistent. Inside, the floor was layered with snow, the pews collapsed into piles of splinters. Claire swept her light across the room, the beam shaking in her hand. That's when we saw it. In the center of the floor was a hole, narrow but deep, carved straight through wood and soil as if something had pushed up from below. Around the edges, the boards were scorched black, though nothing else in the room bore signs of fire. From that hole, the sound poured out, the same low, steady hum, vibrating through the air and into our bones. Claire crouched near the edge, too close for comfort. "This is it," she whispered. "This is what he meant." I pulled her back sharply. "Careful. You don't know how deep it goes." She looked at me, her face pale in the flashlight glow. "It's not the depth that matters. It's the fact it's still alive down there." The words sent a chill through me deeper than the night ever could. I wanted to argue, to tell her she was being dramatic, but I couldn't. Because the longer we stood there, the more I began to hear it differently. The hum wasn't random, it was rhythmic, patterned. Not a sound of nature, but something closer to speech. And then, as if to prove it, the hum broke into 3 sharp pulses, each one shaking the rotten boards beneath our feet. Claire's pen scratched frantically in the notebook. I grabbed her arm and pulled her toward the door. "We're leaving. Now." But as we stepped outside into the freezing dark, we both froze. The cabin with the blue shutters, the one with the pale-eyed man, was no longer dark. Its windows glowed with a faint red light, pulsing in time with the hum rising from beneath the church. The glow from the cabin wasn't like firelight. It didn't flicker or waver. It pulsed. Slow, steady, the same rhythm we had just heard beneath the church. Red against the snow, it made the whole clearing look wrong, like the world had been tinted with something poisonous. Claire whispered, "He's doing it. Whatever's down there, he's part of it." I wanted to drag her back to the sleds, start the engines, and never look back. But something rooted me to the spot. It wasn't curiosity. It was more like the kind of dread you feel when you know you're about to see something you can't unsee, yet you can't stop yourself from looking anyway. The cabin door opened. The same pale-eyed man stepped out, but now he carried something in his hands. At first I thought it was a lantern, but the light didn't come from any flame. It came from the object itself, an old wooden box, small enough to hold against his chest. The glow leaked through cracks in the wood, red and pulsing, just like the ground beneath our feet. Claire raised her camera. The click of the shutter seemed to echo too loud in the still night. The man stopped. Slowly, his head turned, and though we were half hidden by the collapsed church doorway, his eyes found us. "You shouldn't have followed it," he said, his voice carrying across the snow as if the night itself wanted us to hear. "It chooses who listens. And now it will never stop." Claire stepped forward before I could grab her arm. "What is it? What's in the ground?" Her voice trembled, but she held herself tall, pen and notebook ready. The man shook his head. "Not in the ground. Beneath. Always beneath. It feeds on silence, and this place has plenty of it." The hum rose, louder now, vibrating the glassless windows of the church. I felt it in my ribs, shaking loose something I didn't want to feel. Claire's light swept over the snow between us and the man, and that's when we saw them. Tracks. Not footprints, not animal prints either. The snow was pressed into long, narrow grooves, as if something tall and heavy had been dragging itself toward the cabin. Dozens of tracks, some overlapping, all converging on that glowing box. Claire gasped. "They're still here." The man lifted the box higher. For a moment I thought he was going to open it. Instead, he whispered something I couldn't catch, and the light inside surged. The grooves in the snow seemed to shiver, as though the ground itself was responding. That broke me out of my paralysis. I grabbed Claire's hand and pulled hard. "We're leaving. Now." She resisted for half a second, staring at the man with wild, desperate curiosity, but then she stumbled after me. We ran back to the tent, yanked our gear together with clumsy hands, and threw everything onto the sleds. The engines coughed in the cold, slow to start, and in that silence between sputters, the hum was everywhere. It didn't come from one place anymore. It came from the trees, the ground, even the air. Finally the engines roared to life. I didn't wait for a second try. I gunned the throttle, snow spraying behind me. Claire clung to the back, shouting something, but the sound was swallowed by the machine and the hum. We tore down the trail, the glow of the cabin fading behind us. For a while, I thought maybe we'd escaped. The forest closed around us, the wind biting our faces. The hum quieted, but it never fully stopped. It stayed, just at the edge of hearing, like it had crawled inside my skull. 10 miles out, we stopped to catch our breath. Claire pulled off her glove and fumbled with her notebook. She scribbled something fast, then shoved it into her jacket. Her eyes were wide, her lips cracked from the cold. "Tell me you heard it," she said. I nodded. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. "Then it knows us now. Both of us." And in the distance, faint but certain, the red glow flared once more against the horizon. We didn't speak for the next stretch of the ride. The sleds rattled over frozen ground, the headlights bouncing off tree trunks, every shadow looking like it was moving. Claire held on tight, her face buried in her scarf, but I could feel her tension through the way she leaned against me, rigid, unblinking. When we finally stopped near a frozen creek to rest the engines, the silence pressed in. It should have been peaceful out there, no wind, no wildlife, nothing but the groan of ice shifting under the snowpack. But the hum was still with us. Fainter, yes, but steady. Like a second heartbeat under the world. Claire pulled out her notebook. She had scribbled something earlier, in the rush before we fled. She showed it to me now. 3 pulses. Then red light. Then tracks. Her handwriting was uneven, the pen marks heavy like she'd been forcing the words onto the page. She looked at me with that fierce determination again. "You heard it speak, didn't you?" "Not words, but it was trying to." I wanted to tell her she was wrong. That it was just vibration, maybe even my imagination. But she wasn't wrong. I had felt it too, those patterns weren't random. They were deliberate. I said the only thing that came to mind. "We should go back to town. Forget this place." Her jaw set. "If we leave now, it follows us anyway. You felt it. You know I'm right." The way she said it chilled me more than the night. Because deep down, I did know. It wasn't tied to that village anymore. It had found us. We made camp by the creek, too tired to push farther. The tent felt smaller that night, like the fabric walls couldn't keep anything out. Claire stayed awake writing, her pen scratching until her hands shook from the cold. I drifted in and out, every half-dream full of that pulsing sound. Sometime before dawn, I woke to silence. Not peace, true silence. The hum was gone. At first I thought I'd imagined it, but when I sat up, Claire was already awake, staring at the tent wall. "Do you hear it?" she whispered. I listened hard. Nothing. Just a faint wheeze of wind. It stopped, I said. Her eyes didn't move from the tent wall. No. It didn't stop. It's closer. Before I could ask what she meant, a crack echoed outside. A clean, sharp snap, like something heavy breaking a frozen branch. Then another, closer this time. I grabbed my flashlight and unzipped the tent. The beam cut across the creek. At first, nothing. Just snow, broken ice, the skeletons of trees. Then, right at the edge of the light, the snow shifted. Long, dragging grooves, fresh, moving toward us. I froze. They weren't footsteps. They weren't animal trails. They were the same grooves we'd seen by the cabin, only these weren't old. They were still forming, the snow compressing as if something invisible was pressing down into it. Claire crawled out beside me, her breath sharp in the cold. She lifted her camera, snapped a picture. The flash lit the trees, blinding for a second. And in that white burst, I swear I saw shapes. Tall, narrow, leaning unnaturally, as if they'd been caught off guard by the light. When the flash died, the shapes were gone. But the grooves had advanced 10 feet closer. That was enough. I grabbed her arm, yanked her back into the tent, and zipped it shut. My heart pounded so loud I thought the whole valley could hear it. We're leaving at first light, I said. Claire didn't argue this time. She just held the camera tight against her chest, whispering over and over. They're following us. They want us to see. We never slept again that night. And when the gray light finally broke over the trees, the grooves surrounded our camp in a wide circle, pressed into the snow like the mark of something waiting, patient and endless. We broke camp fast. No breakfast, no notes, just stuffed gear into bags with shaking hands. The circle of grooves around us looked like a trap, wide and deliberate, as though something had been studying how close it could get without waking us. I couldn't stop staring at them. Perfect arcs pressed deep into the snow, as if heavy bodies had dragged themselves there in silence. The sleds roared reluctantly to life. Their sound felt almost protective, drowning out the quiet that pressed in too heavily. I took the lead, gunning the throttle harder than I should have, forcing us back toward the main trail. Claire clung behind me, but she wasn't silent. I felt her shouting against the back of my coat. They're not chasing us, she yelled over the engine. They're guiding us. I didn't answer. I focused on the trees whipping past, the trail barely visible under new snow. But her words burrowed into me. Guiding. Not chasing. After 20 minutes, I eased the sled to a stop where the creek forked into 2 frozen branches. I needed to get my bearings, check the GPS, though I already knew I wouldn't trust it. Claire jumped off before I could stop her. Look! She shouted. On the untouched snow of the left fork, grooves had already appeared. Not faint or half-formed, deep and clear, stretching ahead for as far as the eye could see. The right fork was clean, blank, untouched. Claire's breath clouded in the air. It wants us left. No, I snapped. It's not leading us anywhere. It's hurting us. Her eyes stayed locked on those tracks. What's the difference? The hum returned then, faint but crawling under the skin. It didn't come from behind us. It came from ahead, down the left fork where the grooves stretched. I wanted to take the right trail, to floor it until we hit a town or a ranger station or anywhere with walls and heat and normal voices. But when I turned the sled that way, the engine sputtered. The light on the dash blinked out. Dead. The other sled, the one Claire had been riding, cut too. Both machines silent in the still morning. I swore, smacking the throttle, but the machine stayed lifeless. Claire crouched, her hand pressed to the snow. It's underneath us, she whispered. It doesn't want us to go that way. She was right. The vibration was stronger when I knelt, rising up through my knees, shaking the frozen ground itself. Like the earth was hollow and something vast was crawling inside it. Claire stood, her face pale but certain. We follow. We see it. That's the only way. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her she was insane. But in the dead quiet, with the hum wrapping around us and the tracks leading left like a road already paved, I felt my resolve crumble. There was no fighting this. We dragged the sleds to the side, left them useless in the snow, and started walking. Each step felt heavier, like the cold itself was pushing against us. The grooves widened as we went, not thin lines anymore but troughs, deep enough to catch your boots. Something enormous had passed this way, or was still passing, just beneath the surface. After an hour, the trees thinned. We stepped into another clearing, this one larger than the village, the snow unnaturally smooth except for the grooves that ended in its center. And there it was. A structure, or something trying to be a structure, half buried in the snow. Stone, black and wet, arranged into shapes that looked like walls but curved wrong, bending in ways stone shouldn't bend. The grooves disappeared into an opening at its base, where the hum poured out, louder now, like a voice calling across centuries. Claire's notebook slipped from her hands into the snow. She didn't pick it up. She just whispered, "This is what it wanted us to see." I couldn't look away. The red light we thought we'd left behind now glowed faintly from within that opening, pulsing slow and steady, waiting. For a long time we didn't move. The clearing felt too open, too exposed, the trees around it standing like an audience waiting for us to step onto the stage. The hum rolled from the opening in that stone thing, steady and patient, vibrating in my chest like it belonged inside me. Claire was the first to walk forward. Her boots sank into the snow, crunching loud in the silence. She didn't look back at me, didn't ask if I would follow. She already knew I would, because what choice did I have? Leaving her alone out there would have been the same as leaving myself. The closer we got, the more wrong the structure looked. It wasn't built, it was grown. The stone curved and swelled like frozen muscle, slick with a black sheen under the weak daylight. Parts of it pulsed faintly, as if something beneath the surface still lived. We reached the opening. Up close, it was clear the grooves in the snow had funneled right into it, vanishing down into darkness. I leaned over the edge. A tunnel dropped into the earth, the walls lined with the same black, glistening stone. The hum roared up from it, so loud now it rattled my teeth. Claire raised her camera. The flash popped, lighting the tunnel for a split second. What I saw in that burst of light still makes me sick. The walls weren't just stone. They were carved, covered in faces. Not sculpted by hand, pressed into the surface like the stone had swallowed real people whole. Their mouths were open, eyes stretched wide, caught mid-scream. I staggered back, bow rising in my throat. "We're not going down there," I told her, my voice hoarse. But Claire's face was pale with something worse than fear, fascination. "They're still calling," she said. "That's what we've been hearing." "Not it. Them." I grabbed her arm. "No. We leave. Now." Before she could answer, the hum shifted. It broke into that rhythm again, 3 pulses, then silence. 3 pulses, then silence. Only this time, the silence wasn't empty. In it I swear I heard a voice, faint but human, rising up the tunnel. "Help!" I froze. The word was muffled, stretched, but it was there. Claire heard it too. Her eyes went wide, her hand gripping mine so hard her nails cut skin. "Someone's alive down there," she whispered. I wanted to tell her no, that it was a trick, but the voice came again, clearer this time. "Help, please." The sound tore through my resolve. I leaned back over the opening, listening hard. My flashlight beams slid down the walls, catching more faces twisted in the stone. Then, far below, something moved. Not a shadow, not a trick of the light, something shifted against the tunnel floor. Claire yanked her hand free and started climbing down before I could stop her. Her boots scraped the walls, her camera swinging at her chest. "Claire!" I shouted, my voice swallowed by the hum. I had no choice. I swung into the tunnel after her, the stones slick beneath my gloves, the faces staring as if they were alive. The hum shook every bone in my body, and the air grew thicker the deeper we went. The red glow brightened ahead, pulsing stronger now, the same rhythm as the voices. And in that glow, far below us, something massive stirred. It wasn't stone. It wasn't human. It was both. And it was waking. The air grew hotter the deeper we went, like the earth's frozen skin had been peeled away to expose something raw and burning underneath. The hum no longer felt like sound. It pressed inside my skull, shaking my thoughts loose. Claire kept moving downward, drawn by that faint voice that kept repeating the same word. Help! Each time it spoke, I was less certain it was human. The tone bent in ways no throat could manage, breaking across notes like something imitating speech instead of forming it. Still, Claire pressed on, her camera dangling, notebook clutched like scripture. The tunnel widened into a chamber. My flashlight cut across the walls, and my stomach turned. The faces were everywhere now, hundreds of them, mouths open, eyes frozen wide, all straining toward the center where the glow pulsed. They weren't carved into the stone anymore. They were the stone. And in the middle, half buried in black rock, was the source. A shape bigger than any house, ribs jutting through the stone like beams, its surface alive with that pulsing light. It shifted as if it breathed, slow and heavy. Between the bones I saw more faces, fresh, detailed, not worn smooth with time. One of them looked so new I thought I recognized it. Claire stumbled closer, the camera rising. "It's not dead," she whispered. "It never was." The glow brightened, pulsing in sync with the hum. The faces along the walls twisted, mouths widening, and a new sound poured out. Not just the hum anymore. Words, broken and layered, hundreds of voices tangled into one. "Stay with us." The chamber trembled. Cracks split the stone beneath our feet. I grabbed Claire's arm, trying to pull her back. "We need to go. Now!" But she resisted, staring into the light as though it had her by the throat. "They're alive," she said. "All of them. It kept them." Her voice was steady, almost calm, like she'd accepted something I hadn't. The ground lurched, and I fell hard onto my knees. The light flared, blinding. For a second I saw through it, saw shapes moving inside the mass, twisting, reaching upward. Not corpses. Not exactly. Things caught halfway between human and something older, locked in the stone, still trying to crawl free. Claire's scream cut through the roar. I spun toward her, but she wasn't screaming in pain. She was screaming at me. "Don't fight it! Just listen!" The light flared again, swallowing everything. I felt a pressure at the base of my skull, forcing its way in, filling me with images, endless valleys, frozen mountains, people pulled into the earth one by one. It wanted me to understand. It wanted me to belong. I don't know how I broke free. Maybe it was panic, maybe instinct. I tackled Claire, dragging her toward the tunnel mouth. She fought me, clawing at my jacket, but I held on. The faces along the walls screamed in unison, the hum rising to a deafening pitch. We climbed, slipping, stumbling, lungs burning. Behind us, the chamber roared, stone cracking, voices shrieking in fury. The red glow chased us up, pulsing like a tide. We burst out into the clearing just as the ground shuddered. Snow collapsed inward, swallowing the tunnel entrance. The glow bled through the cracks for a moment, then dimmed, fading back into the silence of winter. Claire collapsed in the snow, gasping. Her eyes were wild, tears frozen on her cheeks. She looked at me like I had stolen something from her. "It was giving us the truth," she whispered. "And you dragged me away." I didn't answer. I couldn't. Because even as the clearing settled and the hum finally faded, I knew she was right about one thing. It wasn't gone. It wasn't buried. It was still calling. And it would never stop. If you made it this far, you already know the valley doesn't let go. The silence, the tracks, the voices, they'll follow you long after this video ends. If you want more true horror stories like this, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments. Would you dare to step into that Montana valley?